Um, when you began to, well, you started stealing 5, 6. Um, when you began to move towards more serious antisocial behavior, how old were you?
I would say like I stole up until about like 10 and 11. And then when I got jumped, like I started to kind of fight a lot more during that time. So I feel like the more I fought, it was weird. It was like antisocial, but also it brought me a lot of like a different type of crowd. You know what I mean? Like I guess it pushed me into like not hanging out with people, but like it pushed me into the gang, like people who were like me, knuckleheads, troublemakers, same way, whereas when I was just stealing, nobody like nobody wants a thief around them, you know what I mean?
Right.
So but when I started fighting and it kind of gave me the dynamic of my life kind of shifted when they were like, oh, okay, this guy got hands, and he's willing to fight, and it just attracted a whole bunch of different people.
Right, right. Um, that's a lot to manage at 12 years old, trying to figure that out. So you got jumped um around the 12-year
Mhm.
mark,
Right.
right? Um, I know you've talked about this a lot, but I'd like to, I'd like to hear that. I'd like to hear about exactly how that went down.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, so I was coming home from Monterey Highlands. It's like this like middle school, and I was going back to the house or to the apartments. And when I was walking, this I remember this hatchback Civic pulled up on me, and it was a group of gang members basically, and they were
Oh,
kids. They were young, and
like how young?
I would say like a little older than me, so probably anywhere from like 12 to 15, 16, maybe 16 years old. I would say probably the oldest one. Um, Maybe 17, I don't know. But around that, like, yeah, around that age range. So they jumped
Yeah.
out. The guy who was driving didn't do anything. There was actually five of them, but four of them hopped out, and they were the youngsters, and they hit me up. They're like, "Oh, where you from?" And at this time I didn't really know what that meant. I was just like, what? Like, and then I just feel somebody just like punch me on the side of the head, and I'm like, that's the first time I got rocked. Like I'd never felt that. I was just like stars and all that. And then yeah, next thing you know, they're beating on me and they're taking all my stuff and taking my shoes. And it wasn't like I had nice shoes or anything. It was just beating me up. And I realized that they jumped me not because I was Asian, but it was more like of a that's just the thing to do back then. Like in the San Gabriel Valley, when you're a gang member, you kind of have to put in work. So they just did stuff like that, beat up on kids and stuff like that. And yeah, they just beat me up just cause, honestly, and took all my stuff. And I just remember like feeling more afraid of going home after that because I just felt like my parents didn't trust me because I stole so much because I was such a knucklehead because I wasn't doing good in school, that I'm like, man, getting beat up was okay, but like now going home and having to explain it. I wanted to tell my mom and I wanted to tell my mom not to tell my dad, but being our culture, she had to let my dad know. But the crazy thing is when I opened the door, my dad was there. So I was like, oh, I can't. And he had seen no backpack, no shoes. He's like, where's all your stuff? And I was like, all right, dad, like I got beat up. I didn't even say, there's no word for getting jumped. I just said there's four kids hopped down, beat me up. And he was like, when are you gonna stop lying to me? That was the first thing that came out. Yeah. And then I was like, I'm not lying. And then he's like, I'm gonna teach you today. Like, I'm gonna break that out of you today. And I was just like, and then he dragged me into the room and he beat my ass. And after that, I really felt like I could not trust my family anymore. Like I couldn't trust my mom. I definitely couldn't trust my dad. I was already like hating on my dad, but being that I was that young, I had nowhere else to go. And so from then on was when I started to run out on the streets more. Like I would stay out super long, like the best that I could, and as long as I could, so that I don't have to be home.
So I mean, the guys who jumped out on you, they weren't Asian, were they?
No, they were Mexican. Yeah, they're
Mexican.
Hispanics. Yeah.
The projects that you grew up in,
Mhm.
what were those projects?
So I originally came from Ramona Gardens, and then from Ramona Gardens, I moved to Rose Hill, which is in El Sereno. So I kind of hopped around a lot of projects. Then Rose
Mm.
Hill went to Ramona Gardens. It's like an apartment complex offshoot of the actual Ramona Gardens. Yeah, in East LA. Yeah.
And that's where that initial situation took place.
Yeah, it happened in Monterey Park, which was the second part. Yeah.
It's crazy. I was just in Monterey Park. Yeah, I was just in Monterey Park. I was staying at the new hotel out there. It's nice out there.
Yeah,
Really
it's
nice out
nice
there.
now. Yeah.
So I mean, wow, you dealing with a lot at this point. You know, the cultural differences from ethnicity to ethnicity is one thing, but the social subculture, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother world to navigate. And then you're from a home where it basically doesn't even exist. So when you show up after having been assaulted and robbed, you don't have enough evidence on your physical, like you don't have enough bruises or scratches or whatever for him to, where like what he thought you beat yourself up or something.
I mean, I think he knew I got into a fight, but I feel like he probably thought I was like exaggerating. And I was a
Oh,
kid who didn't express well. Like I said, I didn't really talk much. Now
right,
I'm learning to kind of,
right,
but I would just be like most kids, like I got beat up. Like it was just, there was not,
right,
you know,
right.
who beat you up? 4 people. Like it was just very like
Wow.
one word type of thing. And he just hated that too. Cause he would be like, you're dumb. Like you don't know how to like express yourself. And that's because you don't go to school and this and that, So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was like that.
Wow, wow, wow. Um, San Gabriel Valley, that's where you grew up, right?
Mm.
What was San Gabriel Valley like? And I would guess, I mean, if you were born in '89,
Mm.
this is now like shit, 2000,
Yeah.
2001 that you're
2000,
dealing with that.
2001. Mhm. Yeah.
What was it like in general, or in your neighborhood?
It was pretty chaotic back then. It was kind of like the tail end of the gangbanging era, I would say. Like late
Mhm.
90s, early 2000s was when it was still kind of cracking. And yeah, it was crazy. Like I would see people get beat up. I would see robberies happen, residential burglaries. Like there was you know, a lot of this crime that went kind of hush hush because a lot of the Asian gangs were very tight lipped, very incognito. And our people, we don't really like snitch. We don't really like call the cops because of the distrust that we have from immigrant countries like Vietnam, where there's communism, like China, where there's communism. Anywhere there's communism, you can't trust the officials to protect you. So you kind of have to you cultivate this mindset, right? So my dad and my mom too, they never called the police no matter what. Um and yeah, I would see gang members, rolling up with the Jinko pants and the like parachute pants, super baggy, and the just slick back hair. I mean, it was just a whole bunch of gang banging. And I think that kind of took over all, not just the San Gabriel Valley, but like everywhere at that time. In LA, it was just crazy everywhere. So yeah, it was kind of like that.